Your life.
All right. All right.
We just had a successful convention. I don't know anything more awesome than a speech about America. In less than an hour, aircraft from the air will join others from around the world, and you will be launching the largest aerial battle in the history of mankind. Mankind. That word should have new meaning for all of us today. We can't be divided by our petty differences anymore. We must be united in our combination. Perhaps it's fate that today is the 4th of July. Not for tyranny, oppression, and persecution.
Right. Aliens.
Persecution.
Preach. Yeah. Preach.
We're
Thank you, Will Smith.
Right to live.
Yeah. Preach it, Will Smith. There we go.
Preach the speech.
Yeah.
And should we win the day, then the world will look on the 4th of July as not only an American holiday, but as the day that the world declared in one voice,
Give it
we
to
will
me.
not go quietly into the night.
Yeah. Preach it.
Go Simon.
Preach it. Can I get a
What you just heard was co-host of We Are Libertarians, Creighton Harrington. Well, I guess part-time host would be a better way to label him, right, Greg?
Is he ashamed of us?
I think he might be a little ashamed of us.
I
When
feel like
we were
that's
at
racist.
the Young Americans for Liberty convention, did you see how he introduced us to his boss?
I believe those exact words are, do you remember that podcast I used to be a part of?
Used to be a part of. These are the guys that did it.
Some people just can't handle liberty.
Yes. And can't handle liquor. What you were listening to at the beginning of the program was Creighton Harrington at a wild, almost famous type party tonight after the Young Americans for Liberty Michigan convention. And he was standing atop a chair. I do have it on video. It is very, very incriminating. And he was reciting Bill Pullman's speech from the classic film Independence Day.
Good old Jeff Goldblum. I'm a sucker for Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum was great in them, but he was such a great 90s film actor.
He was he not?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of defined 90s films.
Jurassic
he was in a
Park?
bunch of them, yeah.
Oh, epic.
Independence Day, Jurassic Park, he was in a ton. But Greg, we went out tonight, and first of all, I should say, great to see you up front. This is the first time, high five on the air.
A real-life podcast with
Yes.
me and you.
We have, ladies and gentlemen, Greg and I have sat cities away and hours away, and we have Skyped a podcast together. This is the first time that we are doing it face-to-face for We Are Libertarians. And Creighton, this is the first time that I have met you also. Is that... He's not talking, is he?
Creighton, are you awake? Wow.
Creighton had a let me see if I can say this, disastrously large amount of beer tonight.
He did. And it was all a tax write-off. It
Yes.
was all for the purposes of expanding liberty.
Uh-huh.
There was nothing weird about it. There was nothing illegal about it. Mm-hmm. If the head of the IRS were to, in fact, inquire about their 503c status, she would very much have found out that Creighton Harrington was building liberty with beer tonight. Although he did get out-shotgunned by a 20-year-old.
By a 20-year-old.
21-year-old.
From the University of Michigan, is that correct?
Yes, from the, I guess, Blue Menace of the North.
Mm-hmm. Now, Creighton was, up until tonight, the Midwest regional director for Young Americans for Liberty, but he has since gone on to start his own organization called Yank, Y-A-N-C.
Yeah, see, we talked tonight, and this was actually a y'all convention, which, in case you were wondering, y'all is actually our official sponsor and the main funding of this program. Young Americans for Liberty, they sign off on everything we say.
And I always thought it was y'all, but they said Yale a lot tonight.
They did. It sounded Canadian to me.
It sounded Yale, like as if it were like the college, Yale.
Yeah, like Bones and
Skull and Bones.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. But Creighton, I really thought Creighton was, he talks a lot of game.
Mm-hmm.
He loves liberty, apparently. But, Washington changes people.
Washington does.
And Creighton, how was your evening? Folks, what you just heard were crickets.
No comment.
He is passed out, face down.
Hard pass.
He got outdrank by a Michigan commie.
Mm-hmm. We can't all be young forever.
No, but he thinks he is, and I'll tell you what, he's the kind of guy that should probably just go ahead and join, Rick Santorum's organization because he just doesn't have his heater anymore.
I think I just felt the burn from over here when you said that.
You know who else is shockingly missing, Joe?
Uh-huh.
Dear Leader.
Oh, the president.
Dear Leader is not here this evening.
You know, we wanted Chris to come out with us. I begged him, you begged him.
I did.
And what was his alternative? What did he choose to do?
He's in this place, and many, many men before him have known this place very well.
Mm-hmm.
What it's called is the Friend Zone.
The Friend Zone.
If you are familiar with the movie Karate Kid, have you seen Karate Kid?
I've seen the Karate Kid.
He is the Mr. Miyagi to Daniel San's Friend Zone. He is the sensei of the Friend Zone.
Yes.
But that's okay. You get those cockroaches cleaned, and by God, Liberty will be just fine because Creighton's got things under wraps while he's passed out on the bed face down.
Yes. Well, there was just a ton of Liberty tonight.
Was there not?
Oh, my gosh. You know, if you are a listener of We Are Libertarians, you know, you get a small dose, just a minor injection of liberty each time you listen to this podcast. But if you had gone to the Young Americans for Liberty conference tonight here in Michigan, at Mount Pleasant, Michigan.
Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Central Michigan University, the Chippewas, which I'm offended because I'm part Cherokee.
It would have been like listening to the entire We Are Libertarians catalog in under a 6-hour fragment of time, followed up by a keynote address by Representative Justin Amash. And it was so much liberty that we could hardly contain ourselves, and Creighton self-destructed afterwards.
He did, but however, let's be clear.
Okay.
They were less articulate and less good-looking than we are.
Well, that's very true. Very true.
I'm not trying to put them down because I support liberty. I
absolutely.
support the growth of liberty.
Yeah.
But they're not us.
So if you are one of the speakers tonight, there were some fine speakers at the YEL event, and you just happen to be listening to this podcast. I know a few of you followed us after the event tonight. If you just happen to be listening to this podcast, we are better looking than you.
And that's not a judgment.
We can't apologize for that.
That's not a judgment.
Should we apologize for that?
Never
feel
apologize for being principled and correct.
Okay. That's good to hear. So, Greg, what were your thoughts about the YEL convention?
One, I thought it was fantastic.
Sure.
I thought the star power was extremely good.
Uh-huh.
I thought there were a lot of... You know what? It was an eclectic crowd, though.
It was an eclectic crowd.
I have to say, there was
a very diverse crowd.
That's what it was. And you and I, like, we sat through most. Like, you missed one because you had to charge your phone, and then I missed one because I had to charge my phone. But from what I sat through, the speeches and what was talked about were about what I expect. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, the focus was on retail politics. It was how to build organizations and do outreach from the ground level for college liberty lovers.
How to sell it, how to message liberty.
Well, that was bad.
That was bad. Maybe we can get to that.
We'll get to that later. But that's what it's really about. What it's about is building little pods of liberty and how to spread liberty effectively within those pods. Mm-hmm. And I did think they did an incredible job, and they definitely had an all-star cast.
Yes.
You know, getting Amash is always a huge deal.
And what a nice guy.
Couldn't be nicer.
Yeah.
And you know what I love most about him? He's an authentic. If anyone ever wonders whether he's a Republican or a Libertarian, all you got to do is meet him.
Yes.
He has his nerddom under tight wraps, but you can still see it there.
I love that he wore blue jeans, and his first comment was, I had to wear blue jeans because Rand Paul's been wearing blue jeans to everything, and so I decided I'm going to start doing that at these things and taking them a little more casual, too.
Well, what you just heard was the tyranny of the Pauls.
The tyranny of the Pauls.
And it has been plaguing the liberty movement for... No, just kidding. I'm kidding. Only kidding, Ron and Rand. I think you're both fantastic. You and your blue jeans. You and your blue jeans.
Now, the weather up here wasn't fantastic.
It wasn't. You know what? I told you. We had a freedom front come through.
A freedom front.
We had a freedom front. There was...
That is like a cold pressure system?
It is. When liberty gets too high, most people can't handle it. So what God does...
Mother Nature can't handle it.
What God does, and by God I mean Rick Santorum and his followers, they actually send through freedom fronts to calm things down. It's a great balancing act. You know, I mean, if anyone has the power to control weather, it's Rick Santorum. If you want to fix global warming, that's your guy.
Yes.
And so what ended up happening was Joe and I Pretty much, we saw the entire campus because we asked about 6 different people. Where is the Bovey University Center?
And we got about 6 different answers.
We got 6 different answers, and come to find out, the sorority girl who had the least credibility, she nailed it.
She did nail it.
By God, I love her. So thank you, Delta Gamma.
Thank you, Delta Gamma sorority girl,
exactly.
for the good directions.
Exactly.
Yes.
I don't care what they say about you. Nothing goes down faster than an anchor.
And here we go. No. But seriously, the first guest that we happened upon at the YAL convention was a Reason Foundation analyst, a policy analyst. She also writes for the Examiner, and was it the Washington Journal?
She writes for the National Journal and the Wall Street Journal.
Okay. And I'm not sure without my phone to look directly at it how to pronounce her name, but I'm going to guess it was Shakia. Is that right?
That's racist.
Shika?
That's racist.
Shika
Joe.
Dalmia?
As our minority outreach coordinator, you're
failing,
doing a piss poor job.
I'm failing right now. Where's Harry?
They don't all look the same, Joe.
No,
they do not all look the
they
same.
Don't. And so, but she was fantastic.
She really was.
Regardless of how I butchered her name, she was a bright spot, and she opened. Essentially, she was way before Justin Amash.
Well, if we had been there for the opening ceremonies, but I had a temporary lapse in where the hell I was going.
Well, and we had conflicting GPSs.
We did.
There were 2 dueling women on the other end of those GPSs, and they were telling us to go in different directions.
One was privatized and one was public, and
yes.
I trusted the public, and that's the lesson I learned.
You should have trusted the Google.
I should have trusted the Google, my friend.
Google.
You invented it.
Well, but she was just so good. I mean, she was. There were people who followed her, and she should have been on. Maybe she should have opened for Justin Amash.
I really think so. But at the same time, the intent of the convention, which is probably a misnomer in all reality, because what y'all was trying to do was breed future leaders.
Right.
They were trying to hook people. They were trying to give them the skill set necessary to...
And young future leaders.
They were.
College students.
Exactly. And not even, and real young, like 18 to 20.
We were the old men in the audience, for sure.
Very
Us
old.
and Justin Amash.
Very old. And thankfully, though, men don't age, we just mature.
This is very true.
I mean, the women, they were infatuated with us.
So we were the most distinguished men in the audience.
We're very distinguished. We're very good looking.
Yes.
But what ended up happening was a lot of it, which was interesting, it very much was retail level politics. It was how,
and when you say retail level politics, explain that.
I mean person to person. I mean on the ground game, if you will. It's how to engage communities. It's how to build little pods of liberty, get people engaged, get people to have an investment in the outcome of an election, and to increase turnout and demand politicians and candidates that adhere to libertarian principles.
And so the topics ranged from the first speaker that we saw, who was talking about how we can save Detroit, or how Detroit can save itself, for that matter. And then we had one person who spoke about messaging liberty for the masses.
Caleb Bonham.
Like Rupert. Without an E. Without the E. And then we also had... what was the speaker that I missed while I was charging my phone?
You missed Manny
Rodriguez? Is that what it was? Regardless, what was he talking about?
Okay, so what he actually runs, if you're an Indianapolis or Indiana listener, you're probably familiar with Howie Politics, which is a daily newsletter that covers, literally, it puts the microscope on local level politics, what's going on, the rumors, how legislation's getting crafted, who owes who. He runs a thing called CapCon, and it's the Michigan Capital Constitution.
Okay.
And what it is it's a aggregator of stories, but then they also write probably 5 to 6 per day with a group of writers who offer their analysis on what's going on bills at the local level. And they've had great success because they're a libertarian oriented organization.
Yeah. Because
Manny was actually he's not an actual shareholder or anything like that, but he's actually works for the Mackinac Policy Center, which is a public policy institute that is non-partisan. However, they do look at things through a Austrian economic frame and then a completely nonpartisan frame towards public policy. They don't they don't look for desired outcomes.
Yeah.
So they get labeled right-wing, obviously. And because they took like $6 from the Cokes back in the 80s, like they're forever going to be known as Coctopi.
Coctopi.
But it's a really great organization, and they do great work here in Michigan. He's a Kansas Jayhawk basketball fan, went to UK, studied journalism, loved journalism, but then he got his master's from Detroit Mercy in economics. And he's been a writer about Michigan local level politics for a long time, and it was really interesting to watch because that's something that's a blind spot to me. I don't follow local politics whatsoever.
So, do you think that was one of the better presentations? I missed out on it, so I can't really speak to it.
It was something that it's not an interest of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I find local politics so boring because it's so I get transactional. It's so tit for tat. It's who can do what for me, who owes me what. That's what ultimately ends up getting passed. So I really struggle following local level politics. But at the same time, that's where you can affect the most change.
And then shortly after I came back and you went to charge your phone.
Yes, my BlackBerry.
Your BlackBerry.
My Canadian phone.
Greg Lenz, for those of you listening, he still uses a BlackBerry. And I had to tweet that out.
Why does it have to be
today.
BlackBerry? Why can't it be African American berry?
It could be an African American berry according to Tupac, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice.
I am a fast typer. I will say that.
All right. But who uses a BlackBerry?
I tell you, I am on board. I think
Android
BlackBerry,
or iPhone.
See, when Steve Jobs died, I knew it was over,
And
I can't sign up for Google.
Why?
The NSA, man.
What problems do you have with the Google?
I know you invented it, and this is going to be hard to hear, but
Just clear the cookies in the cache.
They're too tight with the NSA. So I use the phone of the
BlackBerry.
Great White Menace of the North.
Because that's better.
It's not better, but it's a Trojan horse.
It is a Trojan horse. So you're less worried about the NSA.
I am
or more worried
spreading
about the
liberty
NSA.
to Canadians by using their phone and them being able to read my messages.
Yes. So the girl that you missed, she was a very young girl. She was 24 years old, and she had been in, I guess, as a part of a political activist for since she was like 17 years old. And all she was discussing, man, and she just looked so young. I really did feel like an older man at this event tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Because here I am being taught how to perform outreach or how to be an activist by this 24-year-old girl, and she only looked, I don't know, 17 or 18. And so her speech was very simple. It was a basic PowerPoint presentation, and it was basically, if I had to put it in a nutshell, because she reiterated this several times, knock at doors, build relationships, basics. It's bread and butter activism. We all know it. And so I actually left a few minutes prior to her closing that down, and we met down at the Starbucks.
I gotta say, I mean, there was a time prior to the internet when that was the gospel. That was the gospel of turnout. That was the gospel of politics.
Knock on people's doors.
I honestly don't think that's the case anymore.
Well, she mentioned during her speech, she's like, obviously, Mitt Romney didn't have as strong of an online presence as Barack Obama, and that hurt Mitt Romney, and it helped Obama significantly. She's like, however, at the end of the day, statistics still show that getting door-to-door is the most effective campaign tool.
Door-to-door gets your base out.
Uh-huh.
Door-to-door does not sway the people you need to win an election.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of my contention is, and that was actually the kind of the focus of the whole day, is a lot of it was building these little pods, getting your base out, expanding the size of your base, and getting people invested in the cause so they would turn out on election day, which is vitally important.
Sure.
I just don't find it interesting whatsoever. I feel bad. I just want to snore because it's the same story every single time you go to one of these conferences. Well, you got to get the messaging right.
Wait, before we continue, I feel bad because we might, badmouth mildly certain elements of the conference as we were there today. And Creighton is right over here next to us, passed out on the bed, and and he organized the thing.
He did, but he joined a new organization.
Yank. Right.
Yank. And in case you were wondering what Yank stands for, it stands for Young Americans for Neoconservatism. Because Creighton Harrington he saw the NAP about 2 years ago and he waved goodbye to it. And now he has decided to single-handedly boost the American economy by raising our number one export, which is freedom.
But, I mean, in order to prove that he's still close to the cause of liberty, he is currently taking an NAP while we do the podcast.
Well, he's drooling on the bed. Is that really? I mean, he's aggressing against where I plan to sleep tonight. Creighton, your drool is offensive, and you should be ashamed.
Creighton, why did you drink so much? Why aren't you podcasting with us?
I can tell you this: I've never lost in a shotgun beer race to a 20-year-old.
I've never had a shotgun beer race. Yes, but he definitely he went into it. He looked well. He was defending his family's honor, and he unfortunately brought them great shame.
He did. Creighton, son of Harrington, House of Viceroy and Lord of Croy. The most waspy name in history is sleeping right there. I almost feel like I should call King George.
I told him tonight, when I met you, Creighton, I thought with a name like that, he must own a sailboat.
Oh, yachting. Rich people love it.
There was some definite yacht.
Crab cakes
somewhere
and
in
football.
Connecticut.
That's what the Harringtons do.
And so we had this Caleb Bonham guy. And he was, his whole thing was messaging. And how do you message the cause of liberty? How do you word things in a way that is going to cause people to care about them? And tell us a little bit about what he said. What was the gist of his argument? And then we can kind of dissect. I know you and I had shot each other a couple of looks throughout his presentation. Because, and I told you this, for every great point that he made, there was a point that he made that was kind of like, I don't know about that. And it kind of teeter-tottered back and forth, almost like every good thing was canceled out by something that was a little sketchy.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do.
Okay.
In this little segment, I am going to ask you, because I don't want to hurt. It's not that I don't want to hurt somebody. I don't care, because what I believe and what you believe, I feel like is a constructive criticism. It's not negative.
Right.
It's purely based on here's where we need to go, and what we're talking about isn't getting us there.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you what your thoughts were before I go.
So one of the things that he did was played a video, and it was similar to Jay Leno. What he has a segment called Jaywalking, where he goes around and he asks people questions that he assumes they probably don't know the answer to, but they're usually pretty elementary questions, and they're simple questions, and they should know the answer to them. And it just proves a point that Americans aren't always the most educated. We don't always pay the most close attention in our history classes. And sometimes we just don't even know who the president is at this current time.
And it's not that people are stupid. It's that people are busy and not engaged.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's got no implication about, I guess people's
Democrats
level
from
of
Fort
competency.
Wayne are stupid.
Democrats from Fort Wayne. Oh, my goodness. And
they're all shills, if you ask me.
Oh, my gosh. And so he did a video that was, I guess, a parody of those videos.
You could say that, but a parody implies I know I'm mocking, and I don't have that element of self-importance.
Okay, so maybe the parody is the wrong word, but he was out on the streets and he was asking people questions, and they were very simple questions that people thought they knew the answer to, like should the government provide birth control? And when they would say, yeah, absolutely, the government should provide birth control, he would then follow up with a series of questions that would lead them to draw their own conclusion rather than him telling them that the government should not pay for birth control. He would lead them to draw their own conclusion that maybe the government should not pay for birth control. But in the process, and here's my complaint, I felt that he was not just causing them to draw their own conclusion, which was his intention, I think, but I think he was also causing them to, on camera, sound stupid. And, you're never going to, his argument, you could not be logical all the time. You have to hit someone on an emotional level and you have to bring them to their own conclusions, is what he was trying to say. But he also, my argument is that it's just as bad to come at them and expect them to get some big logical scholarly argument as it is to just make them feel stupid and like they don't know anything and like you're intellectually superior. And that's kind of how the video came across. And I'm like, who amongst the women that he talked to in this video do you think converted or began to ask more questions about libertarianism because he made them feel like they were wrong in front of a video camera? Boom.
How many do you think?
0.
None.
I can't imagine unless they were really impressionable.
And your
really
career
naive.
is sales.
Yes.
How often do you close a sale by telling that your potential client is stupid?
Yeah. No, there's just certain things you do. You don't. It really is all about the way you word things. If I look at a website and I see that this website could really, really use some work, I don't just bust through the door and tell you that your baby's ugly. It takes a little bit of finesse. It takes a little bit of political maneuvering on the part of my speech, right?
You say, do you know how much potential your child has to be
a beautiful, well-rounded child?
And I would love to help you take it to where you want to take it.
Let's take it to the next level together.
And instead, what we watched today, and Caleb is a incredibly dynamic speaker. He's very smart. He's articulate.
Was great. He was well-spoken.
He was by far, period, the most captivating speaker we
Better
watched
speaker
today.
than both of us.
Oh, hands down.
Yeah, but we're still better looking.
We are libertarians. However, he was by far the most hands-down captivating speaker. He is interesting. He is divisive. He's all the things you need to be to build the personality. He's got a cult of personality about him.
Sure.
He's got a guy who's going to have followers, but he's wrong.
But he's wrong.
I can't help it, but he is factually incorrect because he started out his actual speech tonight, and what he liked to talk about was not that he quoted. Is it Rockwell?
No,
Blackwell.
No, it was The Conscience of a Conservative. It was Goldwater.
It was Goldwater. But then he started talking about people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
That was the quote he led off with, and I don't even think that gets to the point. My biggest contention is that people don't give a period. People care what they think. And if that's what you know and those are the rules of the game, play to vanity. So the only way, and I still swear by this today, I mean, I'd written that piece called The Ultimate Libertarian Sales Guide.
Right.
And the first question is, what is government? Why does government exist? And if you had to build a government, how would you go about it?
Sure.
Would you force people, or would you try to lure people in and give them a benefit in order to join? And the whole point of the line of questioning is that I truly believe everybody is an organic libertarian. I don't think there's any way logically, if you let people start with a blank slate and then talk about the kind of government they would form, they'd ever arrive at the monstrosity we have today. There's just no way.
Yeah.
People believe in voluntarism. They don't talk about it. They don't know that's what they believe in. But in the United States, when you hear small government, when you hear limited government and constitutional principles,
right,
and American, Santorum, 4chan-esque
exceptionalism, right?
Yeah, and those are just worn out, tired things that don't win anymore.
Yeah, they're kind of these vague talking points that have been thrown around so much that they don't mean anything, and people continue to use them. And we just want a little bit of originality. We do, and we talked about it on the way up here. And to me, and I'm not a big proponent of exploitation, but my God, I'm so sick of hearing, well, I'm a small government constitutional conservative, and that's what America needs. Sure, what does that mean? I have no idea anymore. Because a lot of people say that, and then they get elected, and they act
Ronald
against.
Reagan said that.
Yeah, I mean, Ronald Reagan, he had some of the greatest libertarian rhetoric to any
called
known
himself
politician.
A libertarian.
Yeah, and yet the government expanded in his administration.
Huge.
The Department of Education essentially tripled.
And he said that was one of the things he ran on, was shutting it down.
Abolishing it.
And he didn't even pull a Rick Perry and forgot the third thing he'd shut down.
What was the third thing? The EPA?
I think you know what would have been great if he'd have said New Mexico. No, but I mean that's I'm really honestly I'm just sick of hearing the same things. I'm sick of seeing the same candidates. I'm sick of hearing the same message, and I'm sick of the intelligentsia thinking that the old message just needs to be pushed into our head more, and then finally it'll take. Yeah, emotion wins. And that was the most important thing Caleb said today. Right. Emotion wins, and the emotion you need to win on, it's something you talked about, is one, accountability. And tell me, how would you go about bringing accountability to Washington if you were a congressperson?
Well, there's a couple things that I think would be, if I were going to run for Congress again, a lot of people run on specific issues, but they're issues that everybody talks about. I think the most important things to talk about would be, one, accessibility. People don't feel like they have access to their representatives right now. I mean, my representative, when she came home for a short break, she was supposed to be holding town halls. And rather than holding town halls, she had none scheduled. And it wasn't until we protested outside of her offices and kind of held her feet to the fire that she scheduled one town hall, except she scheduled it in the far corner of the district and made it as inconvenient for most of the people that she represented to get down with her. I mean, we had to travel 2 or 3 hours just to see her talk. And so it was really kind of a joke.
Indiana is not a wide state.
It's
so traveling 2 or 3 hours.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, and so accessibility is a big deal. People want to know that when they elect you and when they put you in office, regardless of whether or not they agree with everything that you vote for, they want to feel like they have your ear, they have your attention, you are representing them, and even if you are not with a certain decision or a certain vote representing them, that you can somehow justify that to them or talk to them about it and at least have a conversation.
Yeah, because they know that, I mean, that's life. 52, 51, 53% disagree with you, and they win, and they're in charge.
Right.
So that's why you get a Jackie Wolowski.
Right. And so accessibility is a big deal.
Yeah.
But the other thing is knowing that whatever the people are going to be forced to do, that Congress, as citizens of the United States of America, will not be exempt to that. So if you look at it in terms of the current, health care laws that we've been talking about for years now.
The Civil Rights Act.
That if they're going to make all of us abide by a certain thing, if there's going to be any sort of mandate, that they are not exempt. And currently, they are exempt from health care. You said they're exempt from the Civil Rights Act.
They've exempted themselves from every major piece of legislation passed in the United States since the 1950s.
And in a corporation, the shareholders are expected to use the product or service that they are asking everyone else to have provided to them or asking everyone else to use. And the purpose of it is so that they have a stake in what is going on in that company, and they need to see it succeed because it is something that they're personally invested in. And when our legislators are not personally invested in it, and they have no motivation because they are exempt from the very things that we are all bound to, then people don't feel as confident in the programs that they're trying to legislate and mandate, right? So accessibility and
accountability.
And if they are not going to, if they are going to exempt themselves from something, then that bill should be dead in the water, right?
Absolutely.
Because we should all be on an equal playing field.
Absolutely. If I ask you to do something, I should be willing to hold myself to that same standard.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And that's because those are two things that got lost in the fray today.
Yes.
What ended up happening, and I mean, and I don't mean any ill will towards the guy. Caleb was very dynamic, but he ended up turning the conversation into what felt like the 1994 revolution again, and it became all about family values and the nanny wars. This is a guy that self-identified as a libertarian and said libertarians have got to be pro-life.
Yeah. Well, before we go on to bro-abortions, I just want to, for the sake of transparency, because transparency is another thing that's lacking in politics, that we are a few beers deep, right, into the night.
Did you have beers tonight?
Yes, I had beer. You had beer also, Greg. Creighton had a lot of beer.
Yeah, Creighton had, well, obviously.
Yes, which is why he's not talking right now. Unofficially, this podcast is brought to you to take time out for our advertisers by Young Americans for Liberty and also by Lion and Kugel's Summer Shandy.
Summer Shandy?
Yes.
Mazel tov and L'chaim, my friends of Pennsylvania.
Let me get like an audio clink here. All right.
There we go.
And so back into it. Please explain bro-abortions to the audience.
And I don't like to cast aspersions, and I don't like telling people they're wrong. Well, yeah, I do. I'm a little bit of a libertarian, but he was incorrect. He gave a very captivating presentation. The presentation started out with how you have got to win the messaging war if you want to sway people who are easiest to pull over.
Yeah.
So his premise is almost an electoral premise, and that's what bothered me from the beginning. Because our goal should not, in fact, be how to almost catch people in our nets when the tide is in our favor.
Mm-hmm.
Our goal should be, this is what you should believe because this is what this country was founded on, and anything other than that is un-American.
And uncivilized, Charles Barkley would say.
Terrible.
Terrible.
However, and so I fight a lot of the political messaging, but no, he made good points, and so he says that. He says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and that's fine, that's great, because in election years like this year, when Obamacare is negative and people hate it, you will pull that big majority over, and you'll have almost an electoral mandate and blah, 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 blah. That doesn't do any good in building future libertarians.
Mm-hmm.
All it does is ride sentiment. You ride the wave and show you're competent in order to capture those votes. Our point should be, and this is what he said, is that we have to get better at our messaging. And that's wrong. You're a salesman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a salesman. What people need to know is what they believe.
Yeah.
People do not ask themselves hardly ever what they believe. How rare is it for someone to have a principled position from starting from square one? I believe X because X, and it builds out, and that's their philosophy from there.
Yeah.
But I think if you ask people, and the wrong way to go about it is the way he did it. He showed a video of after the Sandra Fluke.
He said it was pronounced Fluck.
See, and that's exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
Speaking to a room full of libertarians, and honestly, it was libertarians more than it was Republicans.
Sure.
There were the, little minions of the GOP and couldn't wait to be in Reince Priebus's good graces.
Right.
That shouldn't have been the point. The point was, this is Young Americans for Liberty, period. And he makes this little offhand, snide, beltway comment like, I've actually heard the proper pronunciation is Fluck.
Is that not true?
That's not true.
Okay. When he said that, I assumed he was telling the truth.
That is unequivocally not true.
Okay.
So he says this, and that's the same little snarky, I'm in the know, inside baseball comment that alienates and defeats the exact purpose you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So he talks to me, I said that on talk radio, and quite frankly, that caused me a little bit of drama.
Really shocked some people.
That should not even be a factor. Your only issue, if you are a branding consultant, a political consultant, a messaging consultant, how do I create a sustainable organization that I don't have to continually put resources into so I can focus on the people in the off years to pick off?
Yeah.
And that's what really bothered me about his message. So he showed clips of Reagan. He showed that clip of Reagan versus Mondale where the moderator asks, you are the oldest president in history, and then Reagan goes on to say, I can promise you I will not let the inexperience and youth of my opponent become an issue of this election. It was a great response.
He turned it around. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Oh, and I was telling you while we were watching, I was like, I didn't know if you had ever heard his other response to that.
Mm-mm.
See, he was president, and then 1984, he runs, and the same issue kept coming up, and he accepts the nomination as president for the Republican nomination again, which is anticlimactic. But who he was running against was referring himself as a new age Thomas Jefferson. So
new age Thomas Jefferson.
So Reagan accepts the nomination. He goes up to give his speech, and he goes to talk about his opponent. He goes, "Son, I knew Thomas Jefferson. He was a friend of mine." And I thought, oh my God, I was just
great.
in love immediately. And that's great messaging.
Yeah.
That's likability. It's smart. It's funny. And it endears you towards people. So he starts showing clips of what he does, and that Sandra Fluck, he goes up to these women and he goes, "Do you believe that abortion should be on demand?"
Right.
Right?
As if it were a Comcast television show.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know about you, but even on demand isn't always on demand. I can't always get Boardwalk Empire when I want it.
Right.
Right, but he tries to frame it in that way. One, social issues are done. There's no way, and his point was life comes first. That's what he said. All the other rights don't matter if life doesn't come first. However, life doesn't come without the person that gives you life. And if you don't own your own body, what do you own? And so I was really offended that he said every libertarian pretty much had to be pro-life.
Pro-life, yeah.
That really bothered me, and I wanted to Well, you know.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you personally pro-life or are you pro-choice?
I'm pro-choice out of pragmatism.
Okay.
I don't give a... Honestly, in principle, I am pro-choice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I would consider myself a pro-life guy,
So
but I think it would be very un-libertarian to say what everybody else should believe.
I do. It's a 50-50.
Uh-huh.
From the principled position, you can reason either way down to
Mm-hmm.
both sides. Both sides have as good ironclad of argument as anybody. The only guy that's ever been willing to go down the rabbit hole and be the, I guess you could say, the sentimental terrorist is Leonard Peikoff. That was one of Ayn Rand's adherents, and he made the case that essentially, since a fetus was a parasite on the host.
Parasite on the host.
And talk about great messaging.
right. Yeah. Way to win him over.
Yeah, no, but I mean, that line of reasoning on both sides ends up coming to about a standstill. Like, as a libertarian, you're justified in saying one side, you're justified in saying the other. But at the end of the day, I come down on the pragmatic side where we're wasting votes and column inches on a fight we don't need to fight.
And so amidst all of this, I look over at you, and there is sweat beating down your forehead. You are turning a dark shade of red, almost a violet color, and you're looking at me, and you're looking back up at him, and you're looking at me, and you're looking back up at him. And I thought, Greg is really angry. And it eventually, from that dark place you were in, you calmed down. You were going to ask him a question. I think you were going to challenge him on it.
I was gonna essentially want to challenge him to. Do you remember Zell Miller, the House of Representatives from Georgia?
No.
He challenged somebody to a duel on the State House lawn. Like, that's where I was mentally, and I was like, I got to remember Creighton, who's not going to be employed by y'all tomorrow, but at the time I didn't know that, so I didn't want to embarrass him professionally, and I was like. And he was and at the time I was like, this is one of those little snarky sons of bitches that's self-satisfied, and I want to just choke him to death. And I was like, I told you, you go, I thought you were going to ask a question. And I was like, oh.
I don't want to embarrass Creighton.
And now if I'd known Creighton was going to be fired for being a drunk, I'd have done it right then, you know?
Hey, Creighton, wake up.
Mom, the meatloaf.
We want it now.
We want it now. No, but and Caleb was an incredibly sharp guy, so I don't mean that. He believes something different than I do.
Right, but you coined a term out of all this.
I did, because all of a sudden this turns into Rick Santorum talking about it turned into, you cannot be a libertarian unless you are pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he decides, let me show you what great messaging looks like.
Right. So and he played another video.
And it was, if anyone within the last 10 years listening to this audience has been on a college campus, you know there's that guy that owns the polo shirt with the collar popped
collar,
the visor,
the
sunglasses, probably khakis or jeans, and some flip-flops, and he talks on his cell phone annoyingly loud about that epic party he went to and how he just puked and he's going to class.
Bro, it was a crazy night.
So he decides to make these videos, and they were easy to watch.
And they were well made. And
but
they were
I still don't know what the point was.
They were to his point.
But, yeah.
So the argument that they were making in the videos was, it was like one man walking up to another man, the party guy walking up to other guys on the college campus, and he was saying, so, I mean, like, if we're against birth control, like the government paying for birth control, then girls aren't going to have as much birth control, and so that means we're going to get laid less. So we should really support the government giving birth control. Is that right? And the guys would be like, yeah, that's right.
Then he did it to girls.
Yeah, he did it to girls.
He did it to girls, and then, like, every single... That's what I didn't like about his videos. Every single thing he did was antagonistic, condescending, and self-satisfied.
But some of the girls were like, well, yeah, that makes sense to me. Right?
They were.
Which was
scary.
Which was odd.
That's a totally different discussion.
Right.
But
more of a cultural and less of a political.
And these women are like, yeah, no, you're exactly right. Like, totally, you guys should be pro-choice so we can just sleep around. And
right.
That is exactly the wrong kind of messaging.
He kind of took women back a
the
little
liberty
bit.
movement benefits nothing by making that argument.
No, not at all.
It's red meat for people who are already going to vote for you anyway.
Mm-hmm. And the way that he spun all this was in the argument he was calling it being bro-choice.
Yep, bro-choice.
The idea that if you If you are for government distribution of birth control so that men could sleep with more women, that is being pro-choice.
And that's like some incredible insight. The fact of the matter is, Rush has been doing this since the 80s.
Yeah.
Rush used to have the aborted caller hotline, where someone would call in and talk about how wrong it was that he didn't believe women should have the choice, and then he'd hit a button, and it was like a vacuum, and you hear the caller's voice going, "Oh!"
Right. Well, but whether you like Rush Limbaugh or not, his career has been made by using the absurd to prove the absurd.
Yep.
Right? In this video, or these videos that we were being shown, it didn't really drive that point home. It almost seemed like it was something to be taken at face value.
If your goal is to win, you gain nothing by serving steak to the conservative base. Sarah Palin proves that. I mean, this is like something right up Sarah Palin's alley. You want to get the base fired up? Great. You're going to keep losing elections.
Right.
I mean, and if I don't even care if it's a Republican like Mitt Romney, obviously, is he maybe better? He's maybe more effective at his job than the president, but his policies aren't damn near any better than Barack Obama's. Like, he's at least competent, in my opinion, as a businessman. But, and I don't care, but I'm saying, like, if your goal is to win, you win by creating a self-sustaining set of beliefs that multiplies.
Another thing Caleb attacked was that he attacked libertarians or voluntarists who believe that voting is aggression. And whether or not you disagree with that or agree with that, or whether or not I do, there are people who listen to this podcast who are indeed voluntarists who would believe that voting is aggression and it's not something that we should participate in.
They're not our enemy.
No, they're not our enemy. And that was kind of the whole thing about it. This whole speech and the whole point of this is to reach out to potential liberty activists so that they can go out and capture a new base of independence. But right now, I mean, there is a sect of people who are libertarian-minded, who are very close to what some people within the Republican Party, or Rand Paul or Justin Amash, might believe in. And so it almost seemed like he was saying, just shun those libertarians that are right here with us and try and trade them in for somebody who considers themselves an independent.
Oh, we got whacked all day.
Which is absurd, man.
We sat
there was
there.
Pot shots.
Yeah, we sat there and got beat up like punching bags. Like, it's so stupid to believe in pure voluntarism.
Yeah. We're here to celebrate liberty today, but you shouldn't like liberty all the way.
It was almost like when John McCain called Justin Amash a wacko bird.
Yes.
But
yes.
In this case, it was libertarian Republicans calling pure libertarians wacko birds.
And I wonder if Justin Amash had been there to hear that speech, how much he would have agreed with or disagreed with.
I think he'd have been pissy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so moving on from Caleb in his messaging speech, we should probably get into Justin Amash himself. He got up there and he gave one kind of an update on where things are currently at, in how he's serving and what kind of things he's looking to do or what kind of steps he's taking to I guess, preserve our Fourth Amendment rights, which have been threatened and have been in jeopardy since at least.
I think we're past that. I mean, they're non-existent at this point.
That's and that's a fair way to put it.
Yeah.
Here I am, all trying to be message conscious, but I mean that's just honest.
No, I don't. I mean, anything now can be interpreted as supporting Al Qaeda. Like that's what I kept joking with you with, like all night. Like we were sitting there and I was like, "Oh, loves Al Qaeda. Got the military budget." I mean, it's just one of those fun things to troll because at a certain point, we've heard it all,
right?
And I was hoping to hear some new things, some new thoughts. Although the lady from Detroit was great.
The lady from Detroit, the teacher?
No, the Wall Street Journal columnist and from the Reason Foundation.
She was fantastic. Yeah,
she was amazing.
She was very good.
She was the little bright spot of the night. And then Caleb was by far the most captivating speaker, but she was really great. Although she got hit hard because it was a very diverse crowd tonight. It was a tough crowd.
It was, yeah. It was definitely.
It was a tough crowd.
And they threw some hardball questions out there to them.
Well, Creighton didn't.
No, Creighton threw the softball.
In case you were wondering, there was a Q&A with Representative Amash, and Creighton, being the great liberty lover he is, goes, "This is going to be a softball question, but what's your greatest achievement while you've been in Congress?
Your proudest moment."
And I was like, wow, I didn't know courtship torqued this for him.
Right.
You know what I mean? I didn't know that you had to seduce him.
We are on a time limit, by the way. Amash only has so much time to answer questions and to take questions from the audience, and Creighton fields this question, which allows him to use a good 3 or 4 minutes talking about how great of an experience it was when he pursued the Amash Amendment and how he was given 7.5 minutes on the floor of the House to debate this issue, and how it was great that a genuine debate was going on the House floor, and he used 15 seconds to have someone read the Fourth Amendment itself while they were on the floor, and how he just thought it was so great that he had been given this opportunity to stand up for what he believed in and to represent the Fourth Amendment and the people whose rights were being dismissed by the establishment, GOP, and the Democrats.
Yes, and he is right. He's fighting an uphill battle. Mm-hmm. He's upsetting the apple cart, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I think there was something to take away from everything he said tonight. And most people aren't going to like this, but he formed the House Liberty Caucus. And he formed it by invitation only. And I don't know how you felt, but tonight we sat through a Q&A session with Justin Amash, and I love liberty. I love people that pursue liberty, but there are people that are counterproductive to liberty.
Yeah. I mean, there was this woman,
and she somehow got called on, and I mean, by God, bless Justin for even taking the question.
Well, I mean, she had her hand raised, and it was more of a, the speaker picks people from the audience with their hand raised. He had no way of knowing where this was going to end up. And so she asks this question.
And the question was, what are you going to do, or what should we do, with the rise of the Muslim Brotherhood as a politically active organization within the framework of the United States government?
And it was prompted by an article by Alan West.
Yeah. Colonel Alan West.
Colonel Alan West.
And her frame of reference was in England, where they have 85 Sharia courts. Mm-hmm. And actually, if she'd stopped there, it would have been a fine question.
We don't want to be England. We don't want to be England. Sharia law has no place in America.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, England doesn't have a constitution. They have no set of Bill of Rights that are codified. Everything's based off English common law and tradition, blah, blah, blah. In the United States, that's the whole point of a constitution that serves as a backstop to tyranny of the majority.
And to paraphrase, she essentially said to Justin Amash, Islam is evil, and everyone who practices it is evil, and what are you going to do about it to make sure we don't have it in our country?
That was honestly the most PG way you could have put that.
How would you put it in the non-PG way?
I'll say this. My first words after her questioning and the event ended to Creighton were, have you heard about that new movie, Muhammad, the necrophiliac pedophile?
That's right, because she did say that. She said Muhammad was a bad guy.
That he slept with 6-year-olds and he was into necrophilia.
And he was a pedophile, yeah.
And it was honestly like watching a Tea Party nightmare just fly right off the rails.
It was so bad. And in Amash, he did a great job keeping his composure, but I swear to you, I saw his jaw hit the floor.
Oh, I wanted to answer it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to answer it by mocking her and be like, what do you have against corpses? Racist?
Corpses were people, too.
Yeah, exactly. I feel that's racist, and that's in violation of our principles. No. But I mean,
so Justin Amash just says what? He says, in
the United States, the government we should have, anyone should be able to worship whoever they want.
Right.
You should have access to any religion you want, and they should not be able to tell you what religion you can and cannot do. And then she wanted to ask a follow-up, and he goes, we're going to move on.
We're going to move on to the next question.
And that was one of those things that could have ruined a career if he had answered that wrong.
And when she said, we don't need this in our country, what are you going to do about it? It's evil. His first thing that he said was, I think there are a lot of Muslim people in the United States who would disagree with you.
Exactly.
So, it was a great way to put it. And I looked over at you, and guys, Greg the entire time, he's mouthing in a very quiet voice, don't take the bait, don't take the bait, don't take the bait. And you were just hoping that, and there was a woman in the audience, she was recording this entire interaction on her
there were
iPhone.
4 or 5 people had this all on video the entire time.
So it really could have been a bad thing if he would have not treaded in the way that he did.
Oh, it was a career. Like, that was what I was afraid is we were getting ready to watch a career end.
Yeah. But you know what? But he did not politically maneuver it. He did not say what was politically expedient. He was honest about the way that he felt, but that just happened to be the right thing to say.
It was. It was the principled thing to say. He hit a home run, and then he moved on like it wasn't even a big deal.
Yeah.
And I that's what sold me on him. That moment, because I was like, please shut up and let me troll this old broad. Because there was a part of the crowd tonight that was staunch Tea Party.
Mm-hmm.
There was a part of the crowd that was the inside job 9/11 libertarians.
Yes. There was someone that wanted a Detroit bailout.
Yeah.
There was someone that wanted... It was like Occupy Detroit.
There was an Occupy Detroit there, and there were all these different factions. And he talked about building the House Liberty Caucus, and how it started out. There was like 5 of them, and then he gradually, invitation only, expanded it, and now they're up to 30. They meet every other Thursday. And exclusionary isn't bad.
Yeah.
I really don't think it is. I think that by being exclusionary, he has made people want to be a part of it. Like, I don't think the Syria position of Rand and Justin Amash is nearly as effective without it being like, well, we have to accept you into our group. You know what I mean? Like, there's a little bit of a velvet rope approach, and it's not that it's not a principled thing. It's a politic thing. It's the effectiveness of being slightly exclusionary that often gets lost on, well, everybody can just be what they want to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're a Republican, that's a really good thing because many see the GOP as going the way of the Whigs.
Oh, they're the Dixiecrats now, right? Like, I expect a full fissure here coming up.
And so the whole narrative is that they're these old, outdated white men who have outdated views and outdated policies. And here you have a very small group of cool kids hanging out using the red label. And so, I mean, that's the way that they believe that we can move the ball forward the quickest. I don't know if I agree with that, but kudos to them. I mean, they're very much standing on what they believe in.
Oh, and Justin trying.
It.
Like,
yeah, he's
Congressman
really trying.
Amash is trying. He formed this, like, because he talked about the other thing that was the RSC, the Republican Study Committee. You have to pay $5,000 of your house budget, of your house office budget, towards it, and then you get automatic membership. So, like 180 of the 230 actual Republicans in the House all belong.
Yeah.
And so this is invitation only, and I don't think that's a bad thing all the time, because allowing people that are the Occupy Detroit crowd that we watched ask questions like, should the government bail out Detroit?
Right.
That are self-identified libertarians that believe there is no other right answer than the federal government bailing out Detroit, or essentially the city relinquishing its sovereignty and outsourcing itself.
Yeah.
Which will never happen. That's, Peter Panism.
Yeah.
And then I just really think that I hate to say that because it sounds elitist, but if you want to make headway, don't let yourself get bogged down by your wacko cousin. Maybe let him come to the family reunion maybe once every 5 years. And I really felt bad for Congressman Amash at the end of the night, because he got hit by some questions from people that...
Except for Creighton.
Well, yeah, Creighton literally tossed him like...
Yeah.
I can't even say it because this is a PG-rated show. Like,
it's just like, here you go, you're welcome.
It was like, Justin... all I want to know is whether I can be the Marilyn Monroe to your John Kennedy.
Boom. Creighton, you hear that?
Yep. No, he didn't.
He didn't hear anything.
No, he's going to be working for Students for Liberty for the days out.
Right. Is he alive, by the way?
Yeah.
I can see him breathing at least. And so after the show, we got to talk to Justin Amash for a few minutes, and we didn't take a picture because we were told that that's something that he's kind of, he tries to steer clear from, just because he doesn't like the attention, doesn't think he's anybody special. He's a humble guy. I can appreciate that. So we didn't take any pictures. He offered at one point, but we went ahead and said, we really just wanted to come over here and have a conversation with you real quick, shake your hand. And he was very gracious toward us.
Incredibly. And I mean, it might have had something to do with the fact that you were like, thank you so much for listening to We're Libertarians and all the gifts you keep sending us, because we're so incredibly smart and good-looking, and you're the biggest fan that's ever existed in the history of libertarianism. Yeah,
he was like, We Are Libertarians? You guys work for I love that show.
It was a bit like God worship. I was a bit put off.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be treated like an idol, and I know that he doesn't either, so it was weird that he turned it on us like that. But
yeah, I know. I mean, it's tough when you go places and everybody wants autographs all the time, and especially, elected representatives.
Mm-hmm. Especially when we just came to listen.
Yeah, I mean, we were there.
Yeah.
We were there in support, and then,
So to have people saying, "Hey, you guys are from Weird Libertarians," it's kind of it's a little irritating.
It is. The tens and
let's
tens
just enjoy
have
it.
grown,
Mm-hmm.
but they're very elite tens
Very
and
elite.
tens.
Very elite. And they all just happen to be in Michigan tonight.
I know how I hate this place.
It was a sad scene.
I hate it. I can't even point to where we are on the back of my hand.
Spangle would be sad that he missed it.
Mm-hmm.
He would have been like, "I am the president of all libertarians, and I will be happy to sign your copy of Thomas Paine's Common Sense."
That was the Occupy Wall Streeters.
Yes.
Yeah, there was. I got to tell you, like just the questions that were asked tonight were terrible. I mean,
terrible.
They really were. Like, they were bad. Yeah, it is what it is. But I appreciate people coming out. But there's way too many people within our own darn movement that don't even know why they believe what they believe. They have these incredibly conflicting views in principle that they're not even aware of. Mm-hmm. Like, sometimes I wonder if we need to do some self-education on our own selves. It's, we believe in principles, small government, but don't touch my Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and why can't we be the world police?
Yeah. Yeah, and there was a guy tonight that even was like, "Oh, we should get the National Guard in to make Detroit more secure."
Oh my gosh!
And he was like, essentially advocating for a police state.
No, it was the girl. It was the lady from the Wall Street Journal and the Reason Foundation.
It was sad.
It was, and like that. Ultimately, at the end of the day, everybody in the liberty movement should be focused on being solution oriented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's my big thing. If you want to talk about the negatives, fine, but all that does is it accomplishes absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Put your ideas out there. If they're wrong, be willing to be critiqued and offer an improved version.
Yeah.
And that was something today that actually it was the lady from the Wall Street Journal. I was just like, well, we just set this thing on Detroit, and thank God I'm not a cutter because I'd turn on some 9-inch nails in my black light and just be like done, But
yeah.
But I was like, so are we just? Should our goal be to try to accelerate the decline, like the League of Shadows, or should we
Ra's al Ghul,
or should you start a free Detroit project where you try to get people to move, take over the local and state legislatures, put the right policies in place, build investment, and try to turn it around?
Right.
And all I heard was an analysis that I've been like everybody's trying to assign blame on what happened to Detroit. Like Detroit's even relevant anymore.
Yeah,
the greatest car company in America is Tesla. It's not Ford, GM, or Chrysler. If there is one hope for the American auto industry, it's Tesla. Mm-hmm. Ford's great because they didn't take the bailout and they're a very great car, but none of them are making that quantum shift into a new technological paradigm.
Yeah.
And they'll get left behind or they'll try to buy Tesla, but you can't buy a guy that's already a billionaire.
So overall, I mean, we pointed out some of the kind of like moments from the convention, but as an event, as a whole, with the quality of people that were there, overall.
Justin Amash was great.
And he was fantastic.
The lady from the Wall Street Journal and Reason Foundation were great.
And Creighton, despite being passed out, did a really good job putting it together.
I'd love to say I know.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear his speech.
No. I mean,
I heard his drunk speech.
Putting the event together. Organizing the event.
Yeah.
Now he could have used more signs to show people exactly where on campus to go because we did walk around quite a bit looking for it.
It was harder to find than Anne Frank.
Or Waldo.
Well, but Waldo, yeah.
And so after the Young Americans for Liberty event, Greg and I proceeded to go over to the after party, which was at this Irish pub called O'Kelly's. Mm-hmm. And Creighton and a lot of the Young Americans for Liberty folk and a lot of the people who were at the conference showed up at this place, and we were just going to grab some beers and grab some burgers, and it's going to be a nice little time. Kudos to O'Kelly's. They were playing some fine 90s tunes tonight.
Joe, in fact, announced his candidacy for president and saying, I like the way you work it, no diggity, no
diggity.
Doubt.
No, which is my jam.
Yeah. Little penny.
Yeah,
Little penny.
It was a throwback to that short period of time where we had the No Diggity, We Are Libertarians cover theme song.
I like the way you work it. Oh, unbelievable.
Greg Lenz, everybody. Greg Lenz.
Oh, I have the voice of, like I said earlier, a stabbed cat.
You can't say stabbed cat. What if Chris listens to this?
Did he order Chinese?
He's going to consider that a threat. Sorry, Spangle. And so we had quite a few beer, and then we went and bought some more. And
Beers are plural.
Beers, sorry. and then we, meaning you, me, and Creighton, left Chris Spangle. We called him, and it was the most epic Libertarian Freedom Fest drunk dial ever.
Oh,
and it was so good that he had to tweet about it, and he had to leave a Facebook message about it. Because within the confines of a 4-minute phone call, there was so much liberty being thrown at him over the phone.
it would be like if somehow Lysander Spooner and Hans Hermann Hoppe existed in the same century and had a love child.
Yes.
That's how free it was.
Yes, it was so free.
It was, I didn't sign the damn thing, and there was intellectual credence to that argument at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. It was just such, I wish we had a recording of how great of a phone call that turned out to be.
Although I do believe I am partially responsible because I was feeding Creighton most of the crap talking he was doing to Spangle. So if Creighton's fired, well, he's going to be fired from y'all. That's a given.
It's a given.
Yeah,
especially
but
after the
if he's going to be
Independence Day
fired
speech.
also from Wall, then I'm sorry. I don't apologize for you ruining your professional career, but your podcasting career, that's on me. I'm sorry, buddy.
Kick him with your cowboy boots right now. See if it'll wake him. Do it again.
They didn't do it.
Do it again. No, he's still not waking up.
No.
Creighton Harrington is out like a light.
He lost his fastball. He's no
Yes.
Charlie Sheen.
Yes. He is out like Tim Pawlenty in the 2012 primaries.
Oh, Timmy.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Well, Greg, is there anything else? I mean, we've kind of discussed our experience at the Young Americans for Liberty conference. Is there anything else before we wrap up that you wanted to talk about?
I want to say it was a great event, and I feel like I was negative on it, and I apologize for that. The only reason I would be negative is because I want to move things forward.
Right.
I want messaging to improve.
Mm-hmm.
I want people who call themselves libertarians to know what the hell they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I get things wrong a lot. I'm the scumbag Republican. I talk about blacking out the skies with drones. I get
Don't
it.
drone me, bro.
Don't drone me, bro. But there are certain fundamental principles of libertarianism that you don't just get to go around saying that if you believe in a woman's right to choose, you're automatically like a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case. And I just fundamentally disagree with a lot of the way he went about messaging how to do things effectively, and it just made my blood boil because I don't think he knew who Spooner was, and that's my litmus test.
You have to know Spooner.
You either have sent your mail by post office,
Yes.
or you have sent your mail by the American Postal Company.
Don't you
and
even spoon, bro?
Do you even spoon, bro? Do you even spoon, bro?
Oh, man.
It's a priority.
Well, I would just like to say that, if you were curious about my show, the Culture and Arts Podcast, we have taken a couple weeks off. The two, David Murrow, Jason Murrow, who host the show along with me, had some issues, some medical family problems, and they've been with family members in the hospital and taking care of what should be their priorities first before the Culture and Arts Podcast, which is cool because it has allowed me to, come and spend this day with Greg and Creighton and watch Creighton self-destruct and get completely slammed and lose to a 21-year-old.
Before you know it, I'm probably working for a Union Democrat campaign.
Probably, yes. Yeah.
He'll now be the Southwestern Hemisphere's Middle Eastern Director of Young Americans for Liberty in Abu Dhabi.
Yes. That's if Yank does not succeed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I keep forgetting about Yank.
Yank. You don't count Yank out.
It's funny. He grew a beard, and all of a sudden he talked about exporting freedom.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there's a correlation there. It'd be a great sociological study.
And
to
is it just
undertake.
me, or is it a very Krugman-esque beard?
I want to live, so I'm not going to make such an accusation.
Hey, he's so tired right now. He's not going to jump up and say anything.
Well, he's probably going to lose his job tomorrow.
Probably. Creighton, we are very sorry in advance.
And we don't want to lose our
how bad the
sponsorship.
next
So,
might be.
Young Americans for Liberty, do
Yes.
not let Creighton Harrington be a reflection on We Are Libertarians.
And you know, we joke, we say that in jest because Creighton has said so many times in the past that Young Americans for Liberty is not directly affiliated with the We Are Libertarians podcast, and he says that out of fear that they might lose some sort of nonprofit status or something like that. But Greg and I know better. We know better.
They are our own personal Koch brothers.
Yes.
Young Americans
they're kind of an ATM machine for We Are Libertarians.
Yeah.
You know, we call them and we say, this is how much money we need for new podcasting equipment. Can you dial the Kochs? And they say, sure, we've got the money for you. Come pick up a check.
Yeah, Spangle just drives the ATM, or sometimes they do a little suitcase handoff.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show, and just we appreciate you listening. We're very excited to just be able to come out to this event today and to live podcast from the Young Americans for Liberty Michigan convention from our hotel room at the Super 8, the smashing Super 8. And we are going to go, and Greg is going to urinate in a glass, which is a story entirely different and maybe for another day.
I will never tell that story because just know this. There are people worth trimming from the tree of liberty.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, as always, we promise. Oh, gosh. They're watching us. Yeah. They're on to us.
Sorry.
Media Matters is on to us. We'll try that again.
China money.
And as always, we promise
to do better next time.